Hello, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Rihole Bitata. I am the founder of Steam Power. We are changing narratives. We are opening doors to diversity in STEM, and we are continuing celebrating women in STEM. In particular, we're celebrating Black women in STEM. So today we have someone that has 15 years of experience as a business analyst. She's a qualified coach and a master practitioner of NLP. This winning combination allows her to build rapport with individuals at all levels, taking the time to find out what makes them tick, which achieves great results. She's an excellent team manager, coaching and developing people to the best of their abilities, a version of themselves. Outside business, she runs workshops for women on empowerment, getting them out of their own way and showing how to be a trailblazer for themselves, their children, and their peers. And she's also mother of two and a grandmother of one, or grandma. Good morning and welcome, Patricia Campbell. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm really well this morning. Very well.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for accepting our invitation. This is really special, and this is something that needs to be done on a regular basis. When you switch on the news, you don't see people like you or me or in the news. And if it is, we're either dead or doing something awful, or it's just something, always something negative. So let's bring some positivity into the mix, and let's spread positivity throughout the community. So can you start by telling us a little bit about you?
Okay, so it's like, as my bio said, I am a mother, I'm a grandmother. I've worked in IT for a long time, since 1997. I got into IT simply because I was a lone mother. I had a 4-year-old son, and I wanted to get a really good job because I wanted to take him on holiday, and I didn't want to have to buy a particular newspaper and collect tokens to take him to Butlins. I wanted to have a really big holiday. So in those days, so this is about 1994. In those days, in order to get a job, you had to buy a newspaper. You didn't go on the internet, look for a job, buy a newspaper. I remember I bought the Guardian. It was a Wednesday, and all the jobs that paid a lot of money were IT jobs. I thought, I'm going to go do an IT degree. So I went, did an IT degree with my son. Um, Really hard. So single parent, full-time university, working every weekend and holidays just to make sure I can make ends meet. And left university, had one interview. So left university in June, had one interview in July, and started my job in August as a junior IT programmer. So all that sacrifice and hard work had really, really, really helped. Now, so I got this job. I was excited. I knew nothing about programming. I do nothing about coding, but over the years, I built up, and eventually I left programming and decided that I wanted a role that was a lot more customer facing, where I got to speak to the business a lot more. And I kind of had a sideways move into business analysis. And yeah, 15 years later, I'm still a BA.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. So would you say that those circumstances, looking for that job, the high paid job, was your inspiration to become someone, an IT person?
I just wanted a job that paid a lot of money, that could ensure that I could have a really good future for my children. Luckily, I really like IT. I got it. I'm quite analytical. I'm a bit of a secret nerd. So I really grew and flourished in that environment. When I started, it was difficult. It was hard in terms of the fact that in my function, I was the only woman, and I was the only black woman as well. So there were incidents of unconscious bias, there was microaggressions, there was sexism. But because I was just so desperate to grow my career, I kind of let those things slide. I mean, none of it was vicious, but there were.
Annoying.
Yeah, so I remember one day I came into work and I said, "Oh, my son had a fight at school. He got a black eye," and it was like, "How could you tell?" You know, things like, yeah, things, yeah. things like that, you know. And if, as far as this person was concerned, it was a joke. But when I went into his office a few weeks later and said, look, I've been here a year, I'm still a junior, I need a pay rise, it was like, okay. And then he gave me a 12 grand pay rise. So it was trying to balance that out. And also initially, I wasn't part of the boys club. So like every Friday, the guys would go to the pub and they wouldn't return. I was never invited to the pub. So then I would get a call at about, say, 3 o'clock, saying, Patricia, we're not coming back. If our wives call, tell them they're in a meeting. And then before you leave, can you shut down our desktops and put our briefcases with just the security? So I did that for a few weeks. I thought, you know what? I'm going to the pub with you. I'm not waiting for that invitation. I started to go to the pub with them and then
That's crazy.
not come back. I thought, I ain't staying there to fence calls from your wives who knew that you were in the pub. So, you know, yeah, I started to go to the pub with them, you know, and proper had to become one of the lads sort of thing, you know.
Okay.
What?
And besides the attitude within that corporate space, what was the attitude outside that space when you went into your community and you said, look, I'm an IT person?
Um, a lot of people were like, wow, how did you get into that? You know, and for me at that time, I didn't see it as anything big, sorry. I just knew I had kids to take care of, and I just had to do whatever I needed to make sure I could and they could do things. So that holiday that I wanted to take my son on, we went to Disney World, you know, in Florida, and he was able to have everything that he wanted. But I always kind of thought to myself, being a woman and being black, and especially being a young mother, was never a barrier to that. So when I did have conversations with people, it's like, if I can do it, you can do it. You just have to put your head down for a couple of years. But I promise you, there's jobs out there. And in my experience, the fact that I could juggle motherhood and part-time job and full-time university showed those employers that I was really organized, that I could multitask, and they found that really attractive, you know. So these, for them, it wasn't barriers, it's stuff that they could really exploit in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the conversations I had, it was quite positive. It was a shock because, again, there still wasn't many women in that field, you know. But I really tried to help people to really connect with that and to say, this is the steps I did. This is what you can do. You know, this is the help you do that you can get from the government. You know, if you haven't got like A levels, there's like foundation courses, there's pre-courses. So that's the message I was putting out there.
All right, excellent. Thank you. I've spoken with a few interviewees that said to me that the coach actually mentor in school, or the actually careers advisor, that's the word, careers advisor, was
Mm.
not very helpful when they left secondary school. What was it like for you?
Oh my God. So I used to love reading and I still love reading. I was an avid reader. So when I was growing up, you know, it wasn't a whole heap of money for toys and stuff like that. And, you know, there wasn't this 24-hour TV just churning that rubbish. So the library was, you know, my best friend. I used to spend hours in the library coming home with books. So when you know, you had the careers talk and it's like, so if you like books, why don't you work in a library? Or you could work in a shop. It was never ever anything like shop library. You know, there was nothing about, you know, when I was at school, we didn't even have computers. I remember learning to type on a manual typewriter. But there's nothing about, you know, exploring your horizons, you know, being better, you know, elevating yourself. It was like, yeah, work in a shop or work in a library. So
Mhm.
that was my career's advice.
So basically, you are not giving any credit whatsoever for your success to schooling then.
Oh no, no, not at all. No. It was for me, it was I before I went to university, I had to do an access to the university course. And it was at Brixton College, and there was this amazing black woman, a queer rug. And we had to do like English, maths. I think it was a little bit of IT in this course. But she decided to, and we did like history, and she was the first person that went deep in on our history, on African history. And when it came to English, her focus was, us writing an academic essay. And when she broke down writing an essay, when she broke down writing a sentence, when she broke down parts of speech and gave me stuff that I think was reserved for children that went to grammar school, it was amazing. When she broke down how to write an academic essay and to write a paragraph, when you have your opening sentence and you have your evidence sentence and you have your supporting sentence and then you have your closing sentence, it was so simple. And it just made me think that I can do this. She's given me the skills and the tools and the keys for me to be successful at university, and I was.
Looking at your children's journey, would you say is pretty much the same as it was for you a few years ago? Do you think that schools uh, are kind of preparing young people to take a career in STEM?
I think for, because I have boys, so I think for boys, definitely. Both my eldest son went to university, but he decided to go down the drama route, but that's him. But yeah, and I think especially with my youngest, so my eldest, because he watched me go to university. He watched me sitting up at night crying because I was trying to get my work done. He just, for him, he just knew that it was GCSEs, A levels, and then uni, going to university. With my youngest, he did his GCSEs, he did A levels, and then he went into, what did he do after that? I think he did a design course. But for them, they weren't really interested in STEM. Even though they did IT at school and all the rest of it, but STEM wasn't something that really interested them. But I don't believe that they would have had any barriers or the barriers that I had at all.
Mm, okay. Because unfortunately, you don't see many young people. There's actually the stats show that there's not enough representation.
Mm-hmm.
That the field is pretty much white male middle class dominated still. And you have a
Yeah.
tiny percentage of women, and within that tiny percent of women, then you find a tiniest, even 30% of black women.
Yeah.
So things need to change, and if the percentages are not growing, things are not changing, then there's something within the schools that hasn't changed in years.
Mm,
So,
mm.
what would you say, in your opinion, the schools could do to reverse this?
They need to get people like me in there. They need to go and get those black men and women that do work in STEM, and I do know of a few now over the years. We need to go into schools and talk about our journeys and talk about what we do and talk about how exciting the world of STEM is, and talk about how innovative it is and how freeing it is and how you can have a really good career, and even if you don't want a career, how you can start your own business, so we need to be in schools, we need to be doing talks, we need to be mentoring these young people, we need to be bringing them to where we work so they can see what what we do. That's
Mm,
what needs to happen.
I agree with you 100%. So, what advice would you give to parents that see the potential in their children in terms of STEM but cannot afford it, potential in general? Because I see many parents in the community that complain about finance, and finance being a kind of a barrier to
Mhm.
supporting the children. Do you think, is there anything that the parents can do? Do you think that's an excuse, or is it something that can be overcome?
Definitely something that can be overcome. I think first of all, see what STEM provisions are in school. If it's not great, then secondly, get on LinkedIn. Get on LinkedIn and find black men, black women that are in STEM and just connect with one of us, ask us for advice. I would talk to any child gladly, any parent willingly, share my network, get them a mentor, get them, an internship, an apprenticeship. Definitely, I would do that. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. And in concluding, what are you reading?
Oh my God, what am I reading? I'm actually reading a book about the Orishas. I'm really getting into that at the moment. So it's all about voodoo, hoodoo, and goddesses. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. Might be a bit woo-woo out there, but yeah, that's what I'm reading.
It's funny that you say that. I was looking actually at the Voodoo Festival in West Africa,
Ah,
and how they have these figures that
mm,
actually move without anyone in
ah,
it. So, and since early 20th century, Europe has been going there to find out how do they do that? How can I get something to move without a human being there? No electronics, no computer, just the power of, I'm not sure, mystic.
Mm,
Yeah, so I'm very intrigued as to what that book entails. Thank
yeah.
you very much. So in terms of like for a young child, what would you recommend?
In what terms of a book or
Yeah,
just
for book, yeah.
to me, as long as they're reading, I just think reading just opens your imagination and it takes you to another world. There's something about losing yourself in a book, any book. Just pick up a book and just get into it. Really, it takes you to another world. You're introduced to different ideas. Yeah, it takes you on a journey. It's different than from just watching TV. Yeah, just pick up a book and just start. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. I think it's been a pleasure. No, I think I know it's been a pleasure hearing your story. I think your story is very different, you know, and I think every woman that I have interviewed has a very different story, but all of them are so of purpose and commitment and drive, and I love it. I love. That was Patricia Campbell. Those of you listening, please like, comment, and share, and I'll see you on the next episode.